In today's video, I'm going to explain how to customize your diet if your goal is to reach 10 to 12% body fat. What's going on, guys? My name is Bridger from the Lean and Lethal Project, and for today's video, I've been getting a lot of questions about what should you be eating when you are trying to lose body fat, get down to that 10 to 12% range so that your abs are finally visible and really starting to pop out. So the individual that asked this question said that they are already eating healthy, but they just want to know kind of how to take that next step when it comes to actually putting a plan into place for nutrition instead of just eliminating entire food groups or going to fasting or some sort of starvation diet. And we all know when it comes to fat loss, it really comes down to the accountability and consistency aspect of it. So if you're not being consistent with these things we talk about, you're definitely not going to see the results long term. And there's also the other components, our NEAT, how many steps we get each day, and our training that definitely all play a role. So it's very important for you to understand how all of these things play into the overall blueprint and how they all impact fat loss. And I will say this, is that things definitely change as you lose body fat and get leaner. So you can't take the same approach to losing those last 10 pounds or so that are going to put you in that 10 to 12 body fat percentage as you did in order to lose that first 20 pounds or so. That being said, let's jump into our training here on how we are going to customize your diet in order to lose body fat. We need to know some basic foundational nutrition knowledge here. So we're going to go over what are macros, what are the basics of macros, how we determine how much of each macronutrient we need, what are the best sources of each macronutrient, and then how should we be making adjustments as our body changes, we lose body fat, and our body adapts to what we are giving it. So to start off with, we need to know what are macronutrients. Macronutrients are your bigger nutrients, keyword macro, so your proteins, your fats, and your carbs. Protein and fats are both essential nutrients, meaning you have to consume them for survival. Carbs are non-essential, meaning you can get by without consuming carbs, although I would argue that you're not going to be at your optimal state. So protein has 4 calories per gram, so 1 gram of protein yields 4 calories. That is the same with carbs. 4 calories or 1 gram of carb is the same as 4 calories. Now you will see the difference between kind of total carbs and net carbs, where some nutrition labels or some people will subtract the fiber from the total carbs to give you net carbs, because technically we don't get energy from fiber itself. But I would urge you just to track total carbs. Don't worry about that extra little conversion, and it'll probably put you into more of a deficit, which will be more beneficial. And then fats are 9 calories per gram, so over double the amount of calories per gram of that macronutrient that protein and carbohydrates have. So keep that in mind when you're making food choices. Now, what is the role of each of these macronutrients? There's definitely a long list for each one, but I just want to kind of get the simplified versions so you know generally what the main function of each one is, so that we're not overwhelming you, but you know what they do. So for protein, I simply want you to think of protein builds and repairs tissues. So that's vital organs, that's muscle tissue. The amino acids in protein are going to help with brain function, all of that. Fats, they make up the cell membranes and they help in hormone production. So if you're not consuming any fat at all in your diet, your body is not going to be able to produce testosterone, along with tons of other hormones that are crucial to you being able to build muscle, have lots of energy, and metabolize and get rid of that excess body fat. And then carbs are simply going to be your body's primary energy source. So they're going to fuel performance when it comes to the gym, any athletic activity, working throughout the day, kind of having that focus. Our brain's main source of fuel is glucose, which is just carbs broken down in the bloodstream. The reality of tracking your food. You've probably heard people talk about tracking macros before, and it's what we're going to talk about. It might seem like some big complex thing, but think about when you want to make a big purchase, some investment, save some money, improve your finances, you're probably putting together some sort of spreadsheet and tracking your finances by putting together a budget, looking at your income and your expenses. So if we wanted to make changes with our body, how we feel, why would we not do the same exact thing with our nutrition? We can essentially put together targets and numbers and track how much we have coming in, and then gauge that against other metrics that we will take to determine how much we need to adjust that in order to reach our goals. Now, there's not any way that we can really track how much is going out. You can't accurately track how many calories you burn. Yes, treadmills and maybe your Garmin or your Apple Watch might give you a number for that, but it's not going to be accurate. There's lots of other factors that play a role in our body's total daily energy expenditure. So we just need to track what we're taking in and then make adjustments according to how our body responds. And really, what isn't measured can't be managed. So if you're not measuring your nutrition, if you're not tracking your finances, there's not going to be any way to measure it or manage it. You're just shooting in the dark. I often refer to, if you're sighting in a bow or a rifle, do you just start making adjustments to the scope right away, or do you shoot at a target, get some baseline data, and then make adjustments based on where you are hitting on the target? See, we can't dial things in, reach a certain goal if we don't know what we're hitting, what we're consuming. And really, it takes less than 10 minutes a day. I would argue it probably takes 2 minutes max per meal that you eat. And the more that you do it, the quicker it's going to get. At this point, I can probably tap my phone once I'm in the app 3 to 4 times and have my full meal logged for that day. So it is very, very time efficient versus sitting down trying to calculate things out. And it's going to save you a lot of frustration down the road as well. And then it's going to create nutritional awareness and accountability. What I mean by that is a lot of times people don't realize maybe how many calories or what their food is actually made of as far as the macronutrient composition until they start tracking for the first time. And you might think, oh yeah, I eat plenty of protein, but then you start tracking that first day and you realize you're eating almost all fat and carbs and very little protein. So it's going to create that awareness and then also that accountability where you know how much you should be eating, you have targets to hit, and we can make choices based on that versus just guessing and trying to eliminate whole food groups, which aren't going to leave you a lot of room to progress in the future and are going to leave you very frustrated or damage your hormones, decrease your testosterone, do that sort of thing if we're putting ourselves in that starvation mode, not eating for long periods of time. And then you don't need to track for the rest of your life either. Once you do this for a certain period of time, you will know what portion sizes look like, and you'll just be able to kind of estimate that on your own without having to use an app to track your food because you'll have done it for so long. You'll have a very good idea. And this will translate to eating out or traveling. You'll have a lot better idea of what the composition of your food is just by looking at it after tracking for a period of time. So now let's get into kind of how we're going to customize our diet. We're going to go through proteins, fats, carbs, and then we'll lastly talk about alcohol, which is the fourth macronutrient and actually has 7 calories per gram of alcohol. But if we're serious about our goals, we need to make some smart considerations around alcohol. So starting off with protein. What is protein's role? We briefly talked on it, but it aids in immune system function, enzymatic processes, building and repairing of tissues, and it also does aid in producing our body's hormones. So how much should we be consuming each day? Roughly around 1 gram per pound of target body weight. Now we say target body weight because this is based off of lean body mass or your muscle mass, the tissues that take nutrients to grow. So if you're somebody that has a lot of body fat to lose, say you're 300 pounds right now and you want to get down to 200 is a healthy weight for you, eating 300 grams of protein is going to be a lot. So that's why we want to put it at 1 gram per pound of target body weight. Or another metric that you can use is 1 gram per centimeter that you are tall. You'll find both of those two numbers are probably going to be about 10 to 15 grams apart. So when should we consume this protein? So for example, I'm just under 200 pounds, so we'll say 200 pounds, so I consume 200 grams of protein every day. When should I be consuming this protein? Should I consume it all after my workout? Ideally, you just want to have it evenly spaced throughout the day. and make sure that you're having some complete protein sources around training. Now we'll get into what a complete protein source is in a minute, but let's say I eat 4 meals a day. I'm consuming 200 grams of protein. I just want to have 50 grams of protein in each one of those meals. So figure out how many times you want to eat a day ideally, and evenly space your protein throughout those meals. So some good protein sources. We got lots of options here. What do we need to consider when finding a good protein source? So first off, is it a complete protein? A complete protein means that the protein contains all 9 essential amino acids. So protein is made up of amino acids. There are 9 of them that are essential, meaning our body cannot synthesize them or make them, and we need to consume them from our diet. So a complete protein has all 9 of those. Oftentimes, plant sources of protein are not complete proteins. They don't contain all 9, so you have to consume a variety of different sources to get all 9 of those essential amino acids. So digestion, as far as protein, is it quick digesting or is it a little slower digesting? So this often also comes down to what the protein is paired with. So does it come with a lot of fat? Is it a nice fatty steak or a fatty fish or eggs that have some fat in them? If it has more fat, it's going to be slower digesting. If it's a leaner protein, like maybe chicken, white fish, or a whey isolate protein, that is going to be a lot quicker digesting when it's just that protein by itself. Or you might have heard of casein protein before. That is a slower digesting form of protein that can be found in things like Greek yogurt or dairy, or you can buy it as a supplement, just casein protein. One key thing that I do want to note, peanut butter is not a protein source. It is a fat source. Oftentimes people will try to get all their protein through nuts or nut butters, and they're consuming thousands and thousands of calories because there's very little protein to a lot of nuts. Even though the peanut butter on the outside of the package has this big label that says 7 grams of protein, that's compared to about 15 grams of fat. So you're not going to be getting a good bang for your buck there. So here's a whole bunch of different protein sources. We got eggs. The protein in the egg is in the egg white. The fat and all the nutrients are in the yolk. So keep in mind of that. Steak, shrimp, fish, Greek yogurt, these core power drinks, super convenient. Love those. Beef jerky, tuna packets, whey protein. Tons of different ways to get your protein in. I would argue that animal sources of protein are going to be the best because they're going to have the most amount of nutrients and be easily digestible by your body. So moving into fats. The role of fats is the production of hormones, brain function, cell membranes, and energy production and storage. So simply all your body fat is stored energy. That's what body fat or adipose tissue is. And our body can use that tissue as energy. Our body burns fat when we eat it. It uses fat for fuel, doing low intensity activities. But just because our body is burning fat for fuel doesn't always mean that we are burning adipose tissue. So we need to be in a calorie deficit to be burning adipose tissue. So how much fat should we consume? This is also an essential nutrient like protein, so there is a minimum there, although there's not an exact number. So we have a minimum at 0.5 grams per kilogram of body weight. So I'm about 90 kilograms. So my minimum amount of fat that I consume on a daily basis would be about 45 grams. That's because we don't want to impair all of these functions up here, the production of hormones, our brain function. So we don't want to drop below this minimum fat. You can have more if you'd like, and we'll talk about that ratio between fat and carbs. But I would highly recommend not dropping below this minimum for an extended period of time because it's going to impair some of these functions. And fat does slow down digestion in your meals, so you can kind of use that when figuring out where to put it. You might want to limit it after training because it will slow down digestion and you want to get those carbs and protein in your muscles to start recovery. You might want to have a little more at breakfast so that it slows down digestion. You stay full a little bit longer moving into the afternoon. Or if you're eating a few hours before training, You could add some fat there to kind of slow that digestion down so that you have a more sustained energy source going into your workout or training period. If you're eating pretty close to training, like within an hour, I wouldn't have a lot of fat in that. So what are some good fat sources? So we got the nut butters here like we just talked about. Omega fish oil, I often supplement with that. Highly recommend that for everybody, no matter your gender, your age, whatever. Lots of benefits as far as heart health, brain health from getting enough omega-3s. Avocado oil, I highly recommend using olive oil or avocado oil instead of like a vegetable oil when you're cooking. And then using the sprays as well so that you're better at managing the portions, because if you're just dousing it in avocado oil or olive oil, it's a lot of extra calories, especially if you're not measuring it. Egg yolks, fatty fish again, nuts, avocados, sardines, all great sources of fat. So what are some things that we want to contain or want to look at when looking at the quality? Does it contain omega-3 fatty acids? That is going to be like fish, eggs. Do we want high fat or low fat? Are we looking for an option that is lower in fat, or are we looking for something that's higher in fat to slow down digestion a little, or make sure we're getting enough omega-3 in? And then is it easy to overindulge? So fats are a very easy way for us to blow our calories out, get out of a calorie deficit if we're not paying attention to how many. So if you're somebody that is just easily spoon feeds peanut butter and you can eat a lot of that, I wouldn't recommend having it, just because you want to limit those things that you very easily overeat, and it's going to help keep you in a deficit longer. So moving into carbs, we know carbs are not an essential nutrient here. So they are primary energy source, and they can also blunt the effects of cortisol, which is our stress hormone. How much do we want? So we have our protein target, which is about 1 gram per pound of target body weight. We have our minimum amount of fat that we want to consume. And then really, once you have your calorie target, you can really just fill the rest of those calories in with carbs. And that can kind of depend on your metabolic health and your performance goals, how much carb to fats we want to have. For somebody who may be diabetic or has some sort of insulin resistance problem, maybe you want to go lower carb and higher fat, or vice versa. If there's somebody that has a lot more performance goals that really wants to train hard, train frequently, maybe we want to have more carbs than we do fats. So these are all things to consider when crafting our diet. We want to try to limit carbs around breakfast, focus them more around before and after our training. And then carbs are also going to be your main source of fiber, so I highly suggest having more fiber at dinner to keep you fuller, kind of moving into the evening and the night, so that we're not snacking at night. Some good carb sources, things to consider here is, does this carb contain fiber or other micronutrients? So obviously fruits, vegetables, those are carb sources, and they're going to come with lots of other beneficial vitamins and minerals that we need to function properly. So some huge ones there: bananas, oranges, potatoes, leafy green vegetables, berries. Those are all going to be carb sources that have a lot of beneficial micronutrients. Then we get into some other things like sourdough, white rice, oats, rice cakes, bagels even, tortillas. Those are going to be a little bit lower in like other total micronutrients, although they can be good sources of a lot of carbs. And then quick digesting, that basically is just whether or not it's a complex carb, has lots of fibers that's going to slow down digestion, or if it's a simple carb. Simple carbs are more sugary things that you would think of that are going to be easily digested and kind of give us that spike in energy a lot sooner. And then, will you want to eat more of it? This is, again, going on to that kind of, is it satiating or easy to overindulge when looking at fat loss? You don't want to find or pick carbs that are easy for you to eat the entire bag, like chips, candy, things like that, where you have a big bag and it's super easy for you to just end up eating the whole thing in one sitting. We want to find carbs that we enjoy, but they're satiating. They're going to keep us full after eating whatever portion size we want, and essentially allow us to stick to our diet and not blow way over on calories, because our goal is ultimately to drop down into that 10 to 12% range as far as body fat goes. So now alcohol, we got to touch on this. Everybody's always wondering, can I still make gains while drinking? So 7 grams per calorie, like we mentioned, and you really got to kind of weigh that risk to reward. So when it comes to alcohol, you just need to have a conversation with yourself. Is having these drinks worth slowing down your progress? Maybe you have a deadline for your goal, maybe not. You need to ask yourself that question, because it's not just about the calories either. There's other negative side effects that alcohol will have and how they will impact your overall progress. So the second question I ask yourself is, do you actually want to have that drink, or is it just a result of the environment you're in and the people around? Maybe you can have the exact same experience if you got a diet soda or a tonic and lime or something like that. Hang out with the same people, have the same experience, and it's not going to be any different whether you drank or didn't drink. So ask yourself that question too. And if you're continuously putting yourself in that environment where you feel the need to drink and you are serious about your goals of losing body fat and getting shredded, you might need to reconsider taking yourself out of that environment just for the time being until you get to your ultimate goal. And then if we are going to drink, how can we kind of mitigate some of these negatives that come from alcohol? First, I would highly suggest making sure you hit your protein goal earlier in that day before you drink, and then save your calories from those carbs and fats for the alcohol at night. That way you're going to be more likely to stay in your calorie deficit, but you're still hitting your protein goal, which is going to be the most important thing when it comes to staying full at night and then reaching your fat loss goal. So next one would be drink water between each alcoholic beverage. If you have a drink, go drink a glass of water before you get your next one. Use 0-calorie mixers. This one is huge. A lot of those mixed drinks are made with sugary mixers, especially things like margaritas, mojitos, that sort of stuff. A lot of sugar in those drinks, so avoid any of those sugary drinks. Go for 0-calorie mixers, whether it's diet soda, sparkling water, soda water, tonic, those sorts of things. And then before you go out, set a limit in your head. So you're not just free balling, whatever's going to happen. If you go out, plan ahead, you're like, okay, I'm only going to drink 2 drinks, then you can calculate that into your calories earlier in the day too to make sure you're still in a deficit, and you will have that set and be way more likely to stick to that than if you're trying to debate while you're out how many drinks you're going to have. Odds are you're going to end up having a lot more than you would have wished come that next day. All right, now making adjustments. So a lot of people are very, very quick to make adjustments. Know that we want to lose about 1 to 2 pounds a week, or about 1% of your total body weight is the goal we're going for. So a lot of people, they only lose 1 pound a week, and they saw Bob on the internet lost 40 pounds in his first 2 weeks. But you got to know that Bob lost a lot of water weight, mainly, some muscle mass, and some fat. You just want to lose fat so that you can look lean and shredded and jacked. So be consistent for at least 2 weeks before making any sort of changes. We want to keep protein the same about the entire time, and then adjust your carbs and fats. Mainly your carbs, because we want to make sure we don't go below that fat minimum. So if you're still way above that fat minimum, you can bring them down a little bit and then adjust carbs. If calories get too low to where you are constantly fatigued, not sleeping well, you may need to go into a reverse diet, and I'll make a video on that in the future, but that's just slowly bringing your calories back up to a healthy point while kind of maintaining your current weight so that you have more calories to pull from and get into a deficit and lose weight while still eating more total calories. And like I said, shooting for that 1 pound to 2 pounds per week. Now, when it comes to getting started, don't get overwhelmed with all this. Start with the basics. Really, all you need if you want to start off is to track your total calories and your protein. Being in a calorie deficit will make sure that you lose weight. Being in a calorie deficit while hitting your protein goal will make sure that you lose body fat. So we want to make sure we're losing fat, not just weight, because weight can be water, muscle, or fat. So calories and protein are going to be the 2 things that matter most for fat loss. Be consistent with it. Don't expect to see crazy results in the first week, but if you're consistent with it over long periods of time, 8 to 12 weeks, I'd say, you can definitely drop a solid 10 to 15 pounds and get into that 10 to 12 body fat percent range. And then lastly, track other metrics along with tracking your calories. Track your body weight on a daily basis. Take some measurements, maybe get an in-body scan so you can see how your body is responding when you make adjustments to the calories. So if you want to get started and you want some help putting all of this into place, send me a message or click one of the links and you can apply, book a call, and chat with me using the links in the description. If you want to go from 20 plus body fat percentage down to being able to see those abs while not having to cut out entire food groups, starve yourself, do any of that, then book a call and we can chat about the roadmap here, what the Lean and Lethal project looks like, and how we help you create that healthy lifestyle that's going to allow you to drop body fat, increase your energy, build some muscle, and optimize your performance on a daily basis. So if that sounds of interest to you, click the link down below. We'll see you on a call. If this video was helpful to you, please drop it a like, and we will see you in the next one.